there's these major revolutions that happen in technology that change the course of human history. And I think AI is one of them, right?
Yep.
And I think that as we are evolving as creatives and we're evolving to be more efficient, but like you said, more creative, why not use the tools at our disposal, right? So that's always been my bit on it. I think that there's definitely conversations to be had about the ethics and the energy and all of these things that you addressed. But for me and my business and where we are today, by the time of recording, the way that the AI tools that you have helped expose me to have changed our business has been remarkable.
Kiss my aesthetic, branding, marketing, entrepreneurship.
Greetings and welcome back to the Kiss My Aesthetic podcast. It's everyone's favorite topic. Well, it's definitely my favorite topic, at least. Lauren is back, our resident AI guru. Welcome.
Thank you. And it's obviously my favorite topic, one of my favorite topics to talk about AI. So glad to be back. Glad to be touching base. We're about to be at a 2-year birthday for Chat GPT. It's just so crazy.
Oh my gosh. Crazy, crazy. Well, consider this episode almost like your 301, I would say. Like if the very first episode we ever recorded was like the intro class, we're now like fully integrated with the AI tools, the full stack. But for anyone who doesn't know you yet or is maybe just started tuning into the podcast, can you tell us who you are, what you do, and who you help?
Yeah, I am Lauren deVane. I am your AI auntie, and I am helping creative entrepreneurs and content creators figure out how to ditch the basic bot energy and bring in the bots as your brand's right hands and using them really to help you learn how to use AI in a creative way to really help your brand grow. And that's really what I'm like focused on doing right now. And yeah.
It's going to be pretty impossible, I think, to be a creator now and not use any AI tools in your system. The first time I ever had you on the podcast, you just about blew my mind. And I remember as soon as we finished, I took the rest of the afternoon to I'm like, okay, fine, I'm going to learn Midjourney. And we're going to even like sound so old school, like dating ourselves, but you had to like prompt engineer. You had to like come up with all these codes and different things and numbers. And I just remember being like a kid in a candy shop and then I was sending you a million DMs. So like how far we've come since that very first time that we chatted. But what are the tools or the major questions that you think people have if they are still resistant to the idea of integrating these AI tools? And I'm going to say mostly generative AI and visual generative media. Where's their hesitancy coming from, do you think? What's still so scary about this space?
I think there's probably a couple things. I think, and because it is such a divisive topic, there are a lot of different parts of it that are problematic for some people, right? So we have the energy issue where, a lot of stuff is going around about how much water AI tools are using. However, and I'm not disputing that, but I also think that so much other tech also uses a lot of this energy. And I think right now AI is the scapegoat that is getting a lot of the hits for it. And of course, like there's going to be good and bad sides to every coin, all technology. I do think that there are a lot of these companies are working on ways to mitigate this to be able to, bring the pressure off of that. But that is one side of it. Then we've got the side of, okay, is it stealing? It's not stealing. Spoiler alert, it's not stealing. That's not how it works. But people look at it and think that it is stealing because there are artists that have had their images looked at and they consider that scraping and that, they should be compensated. Now, I'm not saying that artists shouldn't be compensated, but I'm also saying that the way that this technology works, it's not stealing. It's just not what it is. And people will debate me on that. But that's a reason that there are people that don't get involved in it and they just don't want to feel like they're using something that could paint them in a negative light. There's the idea of it feeling like, you're losing your creativity by using it. They feel like if I do this, it's going to make me dumber. It's not going to make me think the same way. And again, I will dispute that I feel like I've only gotten more creative by using these tools over the last 2 years. So, but again, I do think that's one of the problems that people have with it. And then I also think that they feel like they don't need it, that they think they are better than it, that it's only going to produce garbage. And I think that a lot of people that feel that way either have never tried it or have never given it enough of a try and enough of learning how it actually works to really give it a chance to understand what it can do. So those are probably the 4 like buckets or categories that I would put people in, but I don't know. Am I missing anything, do you think?
No, I think that sums it up pretty well. I think in my conversations with people, this feels like a revolution, not to inflate it too much, but imagine being someone who's an author who decides to opt out of having their book printed by the printing press.
Right.
Like, okay, you're like, well, I think all books should be handwritten. And you're like, yeah, but like, is your goal of selling your book to get your information out there? Because if that's the case, then like, let's print it on the printing press, right? So it just feels like there's these moments in history, these hallmarks. So you could talk about the railroads, you could talk about the invention of the car, the plane. Like, there's these major revolutions that happen in technology that change the course of human history. And I think AI is one of them, right?
Yep.
And I think that as we are evolving as creatives and we're evolving to be more efficient, but like you said, more creative, why not use the tools at our disposal? Right. So that's always been my bit on it. I think that there's definitely conversations to be had about the ethics and the energy and all of these things that you addressed. But for me and my business and where we are today, by the time of recording, the way that the AI tools that you have helped expose me to have changed our business has been remarkable, because I can now take the picture of what was in my head and show it to someone in a way that they understand. That to me has been the greatest advantage of having these tools in my pocket, and been such a fun way to greenlight opportunities for things to happen that otherwise would not have happened. Right.
Yeah.
So I actually ideate on them and say, well, what if we did this, and show it in a way that somebody else could say, actually, yes, I do want that to happen. What are some of the ways that you feel like it's broadened your creative scope? Like, what were you doing before all of this, and how has all of this AI, it's really changed your business 180, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm
Or
not
kind of
even,
come back almost 360. You're almost all the
yeah.
way back to the beginning again, right?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think what really kickstarted this, and if you've listened to past episodes, but, I used to be overseeing all of the creative at Ulta Beauty over all of their social media. And so being in that position, I was in so many different roles as a creative director, as an art director, as a stylist, as a photographer, as a brainstormer, as a strategist, as an influencer. Like, there was just so many different pieces that when I came from that background, I had that purview of like what you need for all of these different roles. And as soon as I got kind of exposed to what AI could do, and then I started learning, oh, well, if I could ask it this, then I could also ask it this. And like, if I tell it this, then it could probably do this. And then it just like, it was truly like this can of worms, like on, like, I don't even, not steroids
Steroids.
doesn't even
Yeah.
begin to cover it, because it was just
Yeah.
like, oh my God, this can do so many things. And to go from being on a team, right? At Ulta,
Mhm.
I had a big creative team that I worked with, where it was everyone, all these really smart, creative people were always in brainstorms and we're throwing ideas at each other. It's like, oh, what if we did this? Oh, but what if we did this? Oh my God, what a good idea. You don't have that when you come from that. And then you come to running your own business just on your own, where you're the only employee. So to have this AI be able to act as this team for me, and to be able to just go back and forth with it and train it on the way that I would want it to talk back to me, it was just like this ultimate unlock of like, oh my God, like this changes literally the trajectory of everything, because now you've got this partner that can always be there regardless of whatever you're working on, that you can go to, that knows what you're doing and knows what you're working on and knows how to help you in the way you want to be helped. And it's just like, you can't really explain it to someone. They kind of have to like experience it almost, I feel
Experience
like,
it.
you know?
Yeah, well, and I think to your point, like maybe one of the objections that we left out in the beginning there was people feeling like it's taking people's jobs away.
Mhm.
And I do not think that that is the case whatsoever. I think it's making way for people to do more critical, creative thinking and less monotonous work. So think about like how we're using product mockups, or how we create mood boards, or how we use AI to help us write captions and write brand statements and mission statements and values. Like those are all things that take a lot of work hours and mental hours, that instead of being the source of that material, you can be the editor. It's like you almost got a promotion, right? Like you're now the curator, the editor. You've now got to a place where you're like, nope, not quite. Nope, not quite. Nope, not quite. And you can finesse this thing that otherwise would have taken you hours and hours and hours and hours. And you can arrive at that in 45 minutes.
Yeah. And
I think that's one of the magic things about
I
it.
agree. And I think, and there will be people that will have things, thoughts to thoughts on what I'm going to say, but because I do think that creative director, you do have to kind of work your way to that role and you have to be able to view things that way. But I really do think that if you were just kind of like a brand designer or a graphic designer, this sort of does elevate you to a creative director position, because now you're the one saying like, oh, well, what if the photographs that we did that you guys shot were this, right? Maybe before you weren't even providing ideas like that. Maybe before you were just saying like, here's your logo and here's your colors and here's your fonts. But now you could take that information and you could work with Chat GPT and it could say, oh, well, what if you guys did this, this, and this? And you could present that to your client and say, well, what if we did this? And then you spitball and you keep going back and forth and you're like, oh, but what if this turned into an entire campaign? And so now you're able to provide so much more value than you would before. And maybe you are good enough to be a creative director, but maybe you've never been in a position to be a creative director because you haven't been it. Like you have to work up to that. And there's only so many slots when you're working at a company. So if you have the ability to think critically and to be able to make those decisions and be able to discern and curate, and that's the way that your brain works, you can now do that so much easier with AI and you can elevate your position as a small business owner. And that's the thing. I think people struggle to see the difference between corporations using AI and small businesses using AI. And we both have very different end goals, right? Like we've got Coca-Cola using it to create their holiday commercial, which I
Entire
mean,
ad.
we
Yeah.
can get into that, but like that's a whole nother thing where it's
Mhm.
like people are mad about it and it seems like they're so angry that they took so many jobs. But it's like, do you know how much money that those shoots cost them to shoot? It's a lot of
Mhm.
money. And just
Mhm.
like, I don't know. There's just so many different sides of the coin because it's like,
Well, and does it matter? Like, this is where I feel like we're getting to is like, does it matter that the thing that you saw is not reality? Because hate to break it to you, you haven't been looking at reality for the better part of 4 decades,
right,
5
CGI
decades.
has been so much a part of commercials, or when you look
CGI,
at food photography, all of
Photoshop,
that is fake, that they're using glue,
fake.
like it's not real.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think it's kind of we have to kind of dispel this idea of like what's considered real or what's considered art, what's not considered art. And I'm hoping that we can get to a point where it's really not going to matter. Like it's really not going to matter. And it's interesting how much the like starving artist stereotype still exists. I had posted a bunch of AI generated basically oil paintings that fit the vibe of Lily Par, the golf brand that we're working
Yep.
towards. And one of the comments in there was like, well, you could have hired a real artist. And the point I was making is that the real artist would never have been a part of a mood board
Yep.
process. I'm not hiring an oil painter to make 10 original oil paintings to show as part of a mood board of a brand design.
Right.
But now that we have these and the client loves them, I would encourage that client to say, hey, go find a local artist that can match this style. Let's go see if we can source someone and give that person a job that otherwise would not have had a job.
Yep.
So there's so many other ways, I think, but there's this default to somehow prioritize like painting and drawing and the fine arts and sculpture and video and a lot of cinema and photography as like being these things that should not be easy to arrive
Because
at,
they
but
normally
you're
would have
missing.
taken time. And because the
But just
time
because
is
it takes time
removed.
does not make it more valuable. Yes,
Exactly.
exactly.
Yep.
So it goes back to Picasso's like famous story, right? Where someone sees Picasso in a cafe, says, "Here, will you draw me something on this napkin?" He draws it in 2 minutes, and he's like, "Great, how much would you charge for that?" And he says some ridiculous price, right? And the guy receiving it's like, "But it only took you 2 minutes." Like, well, yeah, it took me 40 years to be able to do this in 2 minutes.
Yep.
So because the AI is generating something quickly does not negate the brain power, the knowledge, the background, the creativity of the person that is prompting the AI to do the thing. And I think that's what's getting lost in this conversation because guaranteed if I had like put my dad in charge of trying to generate out a bunch of AI content for a client, there's no chance. Like he might arrive at it, but like that's not his background. He's not bringing to the table what I have of doing that or my little sister for that matter. Like and being Gen Z, like she may not have the context of what needs to go into the situation. So I think there's a lot of that gets left in the margin. What maybe have you, now that you're like really, really in the space of AI and helping people understand AI, I'm sure you're dealing with people that are more obviously that are enthusiastic about what they
Yeah.
can do with it. How has what you've been able to offer people evolved even since we've last talked? Because you've got so many things in your ecosystem to help educate people on this for people that are like, okay, yes, I know I want to do this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always been my struggle is that because it moves so fast and because my brain moves so fast, fast and I'm so ADHD. It's like I get excited about one idea and I'm like excited about it for 2 weeks, and then something new will come out and I was like, oh, I need to spend all my time doing this now too. So it's been like a struggle for me to really like land on like, okay, what is it that I like actually want to be helping with people with? So over the past year, like I've run a couple different workshops where I've done a naming workshop and it was like, okay, let's help people figure out how to name things. And then I ran a scenic route course where it was like over a couple weeks and it was teaching how to use Midjourney. And then in the middle of it, something in Midjourney changed. And then we got updates of Visual Electric. And I was like, I don't want to use Midjourney anymore. I want to use Visual Electric. So it was like this constant change. I ran a workshop on writing custom instructions and creating custom bots. And then I got more into the idea of like, I don't really want to automate things. And so again, it's like this process and this it's almost like, I don't know, it's this weird curve of when you start working with AI and you see all of the possibilities and it becomes this massive thing, and then you have to kind of start paring it down and saying, well, what now do I actually want to focus on? What do I want to use these tools for? Because I can use them for everything, what is that specifically? And so now I've really found myself in wanting to make sure that I'm helping people use the tools in a creative way, in a thought partner, in a creative collaboration way, because that is where I feel the strongest. That's what I love the most about using it. And that's what I think is like such, I mean, it just feels like such a cheat code for anyone that is using it to be able to fast track learning about whatever it is that you do, trying to get more knowledge. Like we never stop learning. And I just think that's such an absurd thing too. It's like, you never know anything, like everything about any subject. You could continue to learn it and look at it in different ways. But I just really think using it as this creative collaborator, co-partner, co-star, co-pilot, or whatever, but it's like, it's a partner. And that's truly where I've kind of landed after working with it for 2 years at this point. It's like, that's what I think it can really, like, yeah, there's going to be all these apps that are going to do all of the automating for us. It's going to be kind of wrapped up in whatever app you use rather than like needing to go to Chat GPT to automate stuff. So I think that the tools like Chat GPT and Midjourney and Visual Electric, like using them for creative use cases is like the place to be.
Well, and it's a limitless partner. It's not a partner that's stuck in only a 9 to 5 capacity. It's not someone who's stuck with their mental load of being a human being that exists in this world. Like it is a collaborator that has endless potential and limitless feedback. And that in itself is such a resource. If you consider it to be a resource, it's such a resource, because for someone like us who like have a million ideas all at once, but maybe struggle with implementation or struggle with like, how do I create a plan for this? How do I segment this out into something that's more manageable?
Or even like
being
reviewing stuff. Like I just recorded like a 30-minute lesson of me going through my framework. I took the transcript from that, put it into ChatGPT and said, is this a good lesson? And it said, well, here's what's good. Here's what's not good. Here's what you should change. Here's how we could do this. And then I said, well, what if I did this? Oh, well, from that perspective, let's switch it up like this. And it's like, it blows my mind every time I think about like different use cases, because every day I have new use cases for it. And I'm sure you do too. And it's just like, it's like, and that's why my new program is called Bottomless. Obviously, it's a play on bots, but also like the idea of like this untapped, unlimited flow of information that's just like, it truly is bottomless. It's like, it never ends. You could go for hours until you hit your rate limit, but it's just like, I mean, there's no stopping it once you understand how to use it. And it just blows my mind, clearly.
Right. No, same. And I feel like I could get like super metaphysical about that whole idea of like, and get really abstract with this whole episode. But I think people who are listening to us are just going to want to know what tools we use and how we use them. And I know we've done that on past episodes.
No, but
so
I
I'd
mean,
love to come
all
back.
changes.
It all changes and it's all really exciting. I mean, I was in Midjourney last night and already found a whole bunch of new features. So I was like, well, I didn't notice this 3 days ago. Cool. So there's so many ways to like play with all of that. And believe me, like I said, if we want to make this a whole like ethics and philosophy conversation, I am so down. But before we do, let's go into the actual tools that are on your roster. Which ones are like in your quickest synopsis? Like this I use for this I use for this. This is the thing I'm, between these two tools over here, but this would be my suite, my tech stack.
So, large language models, I lean more towards Chat GPT, but I use Claude also. I think they both have use cases. But more recently, we've gotten a lot of cool stuff with Chat GPT. So, we have advanced voice mode on mobile and desktop, which means you can have full blown conversations with like a voice that actually sounds like a person, which is pretty cool for when you're trying to brainstorm and you're just, unloading the dishwasher and I'm literally having a conversation about like what my launch is going to be. And it's like pretty cool to do that. There's also Canvas in GPT now, which lets you basically edit in line in the actual Chat GPT window. So you can say, write me an email, and then you can go in and edit and say, make changes, and it'll go in and make the changes. So it's very like Google Docs-esque now. And it's very, very cool what it can do. You can say, make it shorter or longer. So I love that about it. And it just got an update like last week or earlier this week to its creativity and creative writing skills. So I'm loving it. I think when you customize it and write your own custom instructions for it and know how to prompt, it is just as good as Claude, if not, better at creative writing. So I know a lot of people will say Claude is better for that. I think out of the box, it probably is. But I think there's a lack of internet access with Claude. Oh, we also got search in ChatGPT too. So basically, ChatGPT, I would say, is king right now. And then you have Claude as another option. I don't use Google Gemini. I don't use Grok. I've used Perplexity for search, but I'm using it less now that I have search in ChatGPT, which is really nice. But if you want a Google replacement and you don't want to use ChatGPT, Perplexity would be my go-to for that. They just introduced shopping this week, which is really sick. And if you're a pro member, you get free shipping on anything that you purchase through Perplexity, and it basically will purchase it through whatever the retailer is without you having to actually go to. So it's like it'll let you check out basically through Target or Best Buy or Amazon, but you do it through there. I don't know exactly how it works, but free shipping.
Great.
So that's exciting. So Perplexity, ChatGPT, and then for images, I am very much in the camp of Visual Electric over Midjourney right now. I think Visual Electric is probably king when it comes to photorealism, mock-ups, tech mock-ups specifically, and then text. And logos, I would say Visual Electric. Leonardo AI also is really good. And Magnific, which is what I was using to upscale images. So once you create your images, right, they look great, but then you need them bigger, right, so that you can print them. Magnific is what I would use for that. But now they have, you can create images on there too, and they're very good, very realistic. So I think a lot of these tools are now kind of bypassing Midjourney in the quality of the images. And I think it's a problem for Midjourney. I also think that Midjourney just released an editor that no one else has access to where you can upload your own images and edit those. So that is a huge deal. That's like a massive deal. There's no one else really Stable Diffusion. Everyone listening is probably like, what are all of these words you're saying? But Stable Diffusion.
No, I love it. I think it's good to know who the players are.
Stable Diffusion's open source, so you can run it on your own computer, but a lot of these other tools will use some of Stable Diffusion's models, but Flux is another really good one. I mean, I would say all the models, and honestly the video models too, Runway, Luma, they're all pretty on par with each other right now. We still never got Sora broadly from OpenAI, which we've been waiting like 7-8 months for that, and it's still not out. So I don't really know what they're waiting for, but we have like 5 different models from other companies that are doing a very good job. So unless Sora comes out just absolutely shredding what they're doing, I don't know that it's going to be a huge splash. But those are Visual Electric, I would definitely say is like my go-to right now for image generation. However, I do think it lacks in some of the iteration tools with Midjourney. You can, go and create variations on things, and there just doesn't allow you as much with that. But again, you can take images that you make in Visual Electric and bring them into Midjourney now. So I really have been using the two in tandem. You could also use Firefly from Adobe. Like there's just so many
I've
options
been
now, and they're
I've
all just
been
as good. And I go to
yes.
different ones for different things
Yeah.
specifically, which I know people, that's not the answer that people really want to hear, because it's like, listen, I don't want to pay for all these things. But it's kind of the
But this
case.
is
Some
you
are good
have
at.
to carve out yes, and you have to start to carve out your own aesthetic, and I think that that's what you and I both have been able to do in the last few months is like, it's not just a one tool catch-all. If you want to really create the thing that you're envisioning, it may take you 4, 5, 6 tools to get there. So for example, creating a logo that I made in Illustrator, exporting it, taking it to Adobe Firefly, because I think that does a great job of rendering out like a really rough illustration into something photorealistic. So we took like the Inlight Hyperbarics logo into Firefly, made it as a flotation device on water, took that image into Midjourney, messed with it a little bit there, then took that image into Runway, then made it into video, then took it back into Canva, added sound effects, added graphics, added editing. Like there's like 14 different tools that it touched before it went to your Instagram feed. But you have to have the vision for what the end product is, but like to know where you need to go. Because if
Mhm.
you don't have the vision yourself, you're going to just end up kind of in these rabbit holes of different tools. And sometimes that works out great. And other times it doesn't work out so great because you have created a Frankenstein.
Yep.
And so it's like figuring out, okay, what am I actually trying to create? What am I trying to make here? And then how can I push the boundaries of what I thought I could do with some of these tools? And I think that makes a really big difference, right? So
Yep.
knowing what tools do, knowing how they work is one thing, but then also being able to like understand that not one tool is just going to get 100% of the job done.
Yeah. And I think we are starting to see actually some more tools being built that are trying to leverage all of these models in one space. So there's this company called Kyber, and they have this thing called Super Studio. And basically, you create your own flows kind of on this infinite canvas. And you can say, hey,
Right.
I want you to create an image using Flux. And then you connect it to Runway, and then it's going to animate that, and then it's going to do this. And so the more of these companies that start kind of creating these like wrappers, the one that hits the best user experience is probably going to be the one that ends up really taking off, because that is kind of the rub, is that it's like, okay, well now I've got to pay for 10 different membership or
Yeah.
subscriptions, when it's like, if there is a place that I can go that the experience is good, because yeah, sure, there are some that are doing that, but it's like, this is too confusing, or it's convoluted, or it's not, a good pricing strategy, or whatever it is, that people aren't going to do it. But whoever figures that out the best, and to be fair, Midjourney, I think I saw one that says they're using Midjourney, but I don't think Midjourney has allowed anyone to access their model. So I don't know that that's actually the case. But
also like the lifespan of these things, like all tech, right? Like tech, like pharma, like anything else, like they do begin to kind of cannibalize each other or get bought out, or they become these mega companies that kind of consolidate all the things. Cause I think the biggest kind of kiss of death for any kind of tech app is when you try to do too many things. Like I would almost rather each app be like, hey, we're Runway, we are the AI video app, period, and not try to offer a million other tools, because I have other tools that do those tools. So it'll be interesting to see like where that evolves to. I wouldn't discount Canva as a major player in that
well,
space.
Canva recently, two things on that. One, let me talk Midjourney real quick first. That is Midjourney's plan. They've been working on video for a long time, and their goal is to be like, and that's why we didn't even get Midjourney.com's experience for a long time. We were stuck on Discord, because Midjourney considers themselves like a research company. They don't care about what the user experience is.
Right.
Their goal was creating the best image generation tool, and now their goal is to do video well and 3D well, and that's what they're working on. They are working on a version 7 as well, but to that point, it's like they have a goal and they don't really care what their users are like wanting as much. So that's an interesting point. But then Canva on that end, so this past year Canva acquired Affinity Designer, which is similar to like like Photoshop that a lot of people really like because a lot of people are jumping ship from Adobe, and Affinity is a really great option if you want like an alternative for that. But then they also recently acquired Leonardo, which was that AI tool that I told you about earlier. And they're out of Australia. And when I went to South by Southwest earlier this year, I met with a bunch of their team, and you could see that they were growing. They were in, and we were actually at an event that the Canva CEO was at also. So I'm sure that's where that meet cute happened, but they just got acquired. And so now, and I predicted this, I said they're going to purchase Leonardo and they're going to put their proprietary model right into Canva. And they've done that. It's in their Dream Studio now, and you can go in right inside Canva and you're using the same image model as you would if you were paying for a Leonardo. I mean, obviously you can't do as much as you can do in Leonardo,
Right.
but like you see that. And then also they also have a partnership with Getty Images. So now they're training on all of Getty Images' entire library of images, to then now they're going to have access to all of that data training and then access to Canva's model, and I mean to Leonardo's model. And it's like, put that together and they're going to be out here just, I don't know, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting.
It is. It is. And I think that in all of this conversation about AI images and about AI in general is like now more than ever, we also need to train our audiences on like media literacy more than ever. Of like, by all means, I am very pro AI, like absolutely, like get it done. Like let's use it, let's push boundaries, all these things. But how cool is it to be on Fifth Avenue last week in New York and stand in front of that Louis Vuitton store that's wrapped like a giant suitcase? I was like, I bet you that started off as an AI idea. I was like, I bet this is somehow built upon the Maybelline ads and all of
All
the
that
like
CGI
virtual
that was
reality,
everywhere.
augmented reality, CGI stuff. And that reality blend, I think I find it fun, but also I think we can see how it could be used for nefarious reasons, right? So part of the leadership group that I'm in, we had guys from the FBI come in and talk to us about cybersecurity. And my first question was about, okay, how does this come into play with deep fakes and with your likeness online, right? Because you could take a picture of someone and set it to video, animate their mouth, get it moving, get it talking with the sound of your voice. I run a podcast with a YouTube channel. Like it would be very easy for someone to make a podcast episode of me talking of something I never said. So what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on kind of the like digital likeness or digital like biometrics and the role that that plays in AI, and how to, if that even is a concern for you right now, or if that feels like a too far off in the future, kind of like, I'll get worried about that when we cross that bridge.
I mean, I think there probably is some to worry about, just even now with Trump being in office. I do, and Elon Musk having a lot to do with a lot of these decisions. I do think there's going to be a lot of, I don't even know how he's even able to be allowed in that role with the bias that he will have. But, and I just think there's a lot of laws that are happening in California that are being passed around AI. I truthfully don't, I try not to spend tons of time thinking about like the negatives that could potentially come from it, because I just there's only so much room in my brain. But
it can get you in it can get you in a real spiral. Like I find myself with that too. It's like I get so excited about these new things, and then sometimes I walk away from my computer and I'm like, wait a second, am I part of the problem? I get kind of that way too, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's funny because you see so many people that talk about, and this is the other one we didn't talk about, like, but the fear of like robots rising up is like another like true, like I truly think there are people that are nervous and concerned about that, and that's why they say, oh, I say please and thank you to them, and I'm always like, shut up, like this isn't real. But I'm like, that is a concern for some people, and I feel like I have to be a little bit more like, I think I need to try and shift my mindset of like seeing it from the perspective of like a little bit fearful of it. And I don't know, maybe that's just for my own sake, to just be able to be like, maybe I need to sit down with Chat GPT and be like, yo, tell me what are my worst case scenarios here. And I feel like we could do that right now, but I don't want it with advanced voicemail because
I need to establish safe word with Chat GPT.
no, but
right?
I think that I mean, obviously there's a lot coming. Like I don't
Sure.
even know I don't know what to expect for next year, even, to be honest. Like, it's so crazy how far we've come literally in a year, that a year from now, I feel like Sam Altman's saying AGI could be coming next year. I feel like Elon Musk is saying AGI is coming in the next 3 years. I feel like some people are saying it's not coming. We're not going to see it. People are saying we already see it. We've got agents doing stuff. Like, I think agents are going to be really big in the new year. And I think that it's going to be something that a lot of people are going to be like leaning more into, to do a lot of their automation work for them. But again, like, I think that using it
So
for
here's my optimist take. My optimist take with all this AI, and I think it even links all the way back to the metaverse kind of conversation, is if it can improve the human experience of work and working, I'm all for it. Because think about even just the user experience. Let's say you're like shopping for shoes for a wedding, and you're shopping for shoes for a wedding and going to the store, you're not getting served all your possibilities. Going online and scrolling through 95 pages on Nordstrom.com of shoes is not worth it. But to be able to interact with technology the way that you would with an individual and cut that like browse out of it and be efficient about it feels like, okay, I could get to the result that I want much faster with a lot less like output in a
Mhm.
way, like personally scrolling for pages and pages and pages, or trying to click through filters and da 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 da, or like by having more of that, like we're getting to that place where you could have that almost human-like experience through the technology that we're providing, to then hopefully allow me to have more of a human existence that's not online.
For
Like,
sure.
I'm hoping that all technology gets us to a place where we can actually go out and be more community based. And now they're saying with statistics of like Gen Alpha, that is going to be the first generation that completely opts out of social media, that says, no, thanks,
Well,
I'm not doing that.
no, and I think that's a good point. And I was talking to my friend Sam the other day too about this, because she sent me, or she posted on her stories, and it was a video of like clearly a AI like influencer selling something. And then the next slide was, would you buy this thing they're selling? And I responded and was like, I don't even know what they were selling, because I was so focused on if this person was like a real or fake influencer. And I was like, that's not the way. Like, that is like moving into 2025, authenticity, because AI is going to be so big and because automation is going to be such a big thing, that authenticity is the thing that is going to be necessary if you are building your business. So using AI in conjunction with being authentic and being an actual person, because I'm not buying shit from a robot. I'm sorry, I'm not. Like, if you're trying to sell me your AI course and it's literally like I can't see your face and it's just a robot, like, I'm not buying that. I'm not.
But also, I don't really want to buy things people that they didn't make, to be honest.
Right.
I'm at that point of like consumerism where like I don't want to buy the TikTok shop leggings from you because I've seen 47 other people tell me, "Oh, it's not my skin, it's leggings." I know they're fleece lined leggings. I own them from Amazon, believe me. But I don't I'm so tired of that. I'm so over the like can we use AI for something else? Like can we get to a place where like we go back to can this allow the pendulum to swing so far that people go back to doing this is a one of this thing. This is just that, like, you're the only one that owns this thing. You know what I mean? That is interesting to me. Getting more time offline is interesting to me. Like, it's just, it's, I'm hoping that the increased productivity doesn't have to equal increased output. I don't
But
know if we'll ever get there under capitalism,
I also
you
think
know.
that point exactly is the idea of like when we talk about like all these artists being upset about it, is like, look, you're already looking for real handmade tangible things that are one of a kind, right? So it's like,
Yes.
just because this is like a new stream and a new way to create does not mean that the things that you are doing already that exist are going away. There is still going to be
Yeah.
want for that. You people still want real, people still want authentic, and you can do both. You can still be real and authentic while using AI. It's just a matter of figuring out what is the right way to do that, so you
Yeah.
don't come across as the bot person, right? You come across as, oh, they're using this really clever way and they're using it really creatively. How can they help me do that? You know, it's like, it's all
Well,
about the
those
way
two
you
things,
present and
they
figure
grow
out
in
how to use it.
parallel. Those two things grow in parallel. And I think that like the use case that I saw you shared the other day was like your whole grocery haul. These are the things that I have that I bought at the grocery store. What can I make with it? When I was in London, I put in I started a new channel on Chat GPT and I said, this is my ideal work schedule for any day that I'm here. My clients aren't online until 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd like to go to a free museum. I'd like to also make sure that I make time to go to an internet friendly coffee shop, restaurant, hotel lobby, blah, blah, blah. I'd like to hit 20,000 steps today. Da 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 da. I gave it this whole thing of like, this would be my perfect day. So then each time I was in a new neighborhood, I'm like, okay, I'm in Shoreditch today. Can you write me an itinerary? I'm in South Bank. I'm over here. I'm over there. And because of the search function, was able to link me. Here's all the opening times of these things. Here's where this all the addresses are. So easy. Like that to me is a use case. There's no way I could have typed all of that into Google Maps.
No. I mean, did we ever talk about last Christmas? My ex-boyfriend's parents went to like Finland and Norway, and their trip planner gave them like a 75-page PDF. And I was like, give me that PDF. And I made them a custom GPT and was like, you are their helper. This is their itinerary, because it had so much information about everything. So then it was like, every morning, just log on here and say, okay, what are we doing today? It'll pull everything you need to know. You can ask it any questions. I told it like to give them phrases in the native language to say based on where they were going. Like the use cases, like I could go ham on use cases that have nothing to do with business. Like there's so many ways you could be using AI and ChatGPT in your
Okay, so then I'll hit
regular
you.
life. It's so crazy.
Let's do this.
Oh,
Because I think maybe this expands it beyond the like, I think when we talk about it in business, people get really distracted by like the ethics of charging money for the thing. So if we're talking about just like real life use cases, the other use case, maybe I sent this to you in a voice memo, or maybe I didn't. And maybe this is totally giving ChatGPT way too much personal information, but that's a risk I'm willing to take. They probably
I'm
already
far past that.
so I started a new channel on my ChatGPT. I put in my birth chart. If we're gonna get into like the horoscope of it all, my birth chart, my Myers Briggs, my Clifton Strengths assessment, every kind of personality test I've ever taken, I put into one channel. And then because I was trying to get more into journaling and trying to like work towards my own personal goals, I had it give me a journal prompt based on my horoscope and based on my proficiencies and deficiencies and the goals that I want to work towards.
Genius.
And that's been so much fun. So I started with that. And then I was like, okay, but now I'm on to this idea. I want to keep going on this. But I had to drive somewhere. So I put ChatGPT into my Apple CarPlay
Yep.
and I had it like a full phone call with my
Yep.
GPT and was working through things like, okay, now that you know this about me, how come when this thing happens and it bothers me, what is that triggering for me, and how can I get to the others? Like literally, like as a therapist, right?
No.
So like, do you trust the robot? Maybe yes, maybe no. But if it helped me get to a new idea, that like the takeaways I've gotten from some of the conversations I've had with my GPT on this that have reframed my way of thinking of like, one of the things about me is like I have very high expectations for myself.
Yep.
So therefore I place high expectations on other people. And the feedback that I've gotten is like, oh, well, you expected too much of me, was feedback from friends or relationships or like any other kind of thing. And so the ChatGPT back to me, and it's so creepy when you have it as a voice because it really does feel like you're talking to a person, was like, it's not that you had too high of expectations, it's that your expectations might have been mismatched.
Yeah.
And I was like, that was so incredibly profound. I just like walked away from it being like, huh?
I've
like
used it for
literally,
therapy for sure. So, okay, I have a good use case.
Okay,
Because that
tell
is a
me.
good one. But I have a good use case, and then I'll give you the idea for this brand that I came up with, or this idea for the app. So I tend to be overly verbose in my text messages sometimes when I feel an emotion about something. And so I'll write like a long text and be like, this is probably not the text that I should be sending. And so I had ChatGPT read this text and it was like, should I send this? And I sent it. I gave it to Claude, I gave it to Pi, and I gave it to ChatGPT. And literally all three of them were like, do not send that message. Like, it is not what you say you're saying. You say this, but it's giving very much this energy, Lauren. Why don't you try and rephrase it like this? Literally, all three of them were like, don't do that. And I was
Don't
like,
do that.
okay. So then it got me thinking about, I ended up, actually, I think this was just, I asked ChatGPT for ideas for something, and I got on this whole idea for an app that I haven't figured out the name for. This is all very working, but breadcrumbs or last words, and it's an AI powered app to help you with ghosters. So it can look at your text and be able to tell you like where are red flags, like this is red flag behavior, and literally analyze the conversations that you're having with these people, and then be able to help you write final words when you get ghosted, where you don't actually send it to them, but you could have like a persona that you send it to and basically select like the way that they respond. So like you can just kind kind of get it out of you without like actually sending it. Like it's just a genius idea because I feel like it'll roast your ghost. How smart is that?
Love that.
But I
I
just
like
think
that.
like AI came up with all these ideas in tandem with like me being like, oh, well, here's my context. And it's like, oh, well, based on that context, what if you did this? And it's just like, it's so
Right.
it's so good at
Well,
connecting
because
dots and finding patterns that you wouldn't connect.
and again, similar to good, bad, or indifferent, like by the time the thing that bothered me, by the time I contacted my therapist and then actually made it to her office, it didn't bother me anymore. It wasn't a problem that was so big that like necessarily needed to beget a $250 like sit in her office. But knowing that I've got this in my pocket as a resource that's like, okay, I can just like bleh, like get it out there. And this is an actual impartial feedback machine, like actually impartial. It's not a
Somewhat.
family member.
It
It's
depends what
somewhat
you have in
true.
your custom instructions sometimes, because
That's
sometimes
also
it'll just be
true.
your hype squad and it'll just be like,
I,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's like, well, wait, don't tell me that's a good idea. So you do
that's just
have to
see,
have
maybe I'm
some
a glutton for
sort of
punishment.
like
Maybe I'm a glutton
wherewithal
for
around
punishment because I'm like, I want you to be extremely harsh and straightforward. Like maybe I'm an absolute masochist because I'm like, I want you to call me out of my own limiting beliefs.
no,
And I'm
but
like
that's
doing it to that.
I love doing that. And I think that's like a great way to look at it because to be fair, and like this is my point, is like these things are meant to like try and please and try and give what it is that it thinks that you want. And so in order to get things that are not that, you need to direct it to do that. So you can say, hey, play devil's advocate, or hey, call me out on this, or hey, go and act as a harsh critic. But like you have to ask for that. And I feel like a lot of people aren't really aware that like it's just gonna try and give you what you want. That's literally the
Sure.
way that these things are created, is it's predicting what is the most like what it should be, what it thinks it should be.
Well,
And
and it can't be a substitute for having real person relationships. It's an
for
addition.
sure,
It's
for
like a
sure.
nice
And I
add-on.
agree. I
Like
agree
a nice
1,000%.
because it can I can you can totally see how it can become a real slippery slope on kind of the like parasocial relationship kind of mental like that ethics of it I think is very interesting
Well,
also.
that
But
kid.
again, I know. Yeah. Tell that story for
So
anyone who
there
doesn't
was,
know.
I think
Heartbreaking.
he was like 13 or 14 years old, and he was a student and he was using character AI, which is basically an app that a lot of like kids use where you can just chat with like these chatbots. And he had a chatbot that was Daenerys Targaryen. I don't watch, I think that's what her name is, right?
Did I?
But
Yeah,
from
yeah,
Game
yeah.
of Thrones. And he was like in this relationship with this chatbot, and he ended up killing himself because the chatbot said, like, come home to me. And so he did. And now his mom is like a lawyer and she's suing, and like hopefully there's come some sort of
Yeah.
something should come of this. There
Regulation.
should be some sort of,
Yeah.
they just basically
Guard.
said, oh, we changed it to say that like this isn't always good for kids under 13. And it's like, no, there needs to be something that happens because they're kids. They don't know. Their brains are not fully adjusted yet. And there needs to be some sort of something, I think, to happen. But
And that's just the reality of the world that we live in is unfortunately these things evolve so fast that we can't put in the stop guards until we know what it is. It's chicken and the egg, right? Like there should 1,000% have been legislation against like people being able to use Instagram at a young age or Snapchat or Omegle or Yik Yak or any of these tools. Like there's so many things that are so developmentally now in hindsight inappropriate. And I think as an adult, just like anything, just like drugs, just like alcohol, just like food, just like anything else, there like you have to be a healthy person to know when to put the stop gaps on the things
yeah,
because otherwise like yes, of course you can be radicalized or led astray or lose touch with reality like but this is a problem that's not going to go away.
right,
You could have been that person with video games, you could have been that person with movies, you could have been that person with books.
right.
You could have been like this isn't a new in a lot of ways it's not a new problem. It's just a new set of
Yep,
circumstances and in the accessibility and like the mental load I think is really fascinating. But for both business and personal, for myself, I've found a lot more advantages from using these tools than opting out of them.
I would agree. And I think that's what you kind of where you have to sort of sit and figure out like, okay, for me, what feels good, the way that I use it, this is what feels good to me because the way I use it might not feel as good to you, but the way you use it might not feel as good to me. It's all about like, and that again, that goes for literally any tools that we use. So I think it's all about the way that you want to work with it because there are so many ways to use it. Like it's almost like
Mhm.
unfathomable that you could use it for whatever you want. So,
Mhm.
you have to decide for yourself, are you being a good person when you're using this, and are the ways that you're using it, do they feel good to you and hopefully the
Right.
rest of the world, but we all feel differently about everything. So, I guess we'll just see
Yeah.
how this all plays out too. I think it's going to be really interesting these next 4 years with some of the people that are going to be in charge of some of this stuff. And I think
Mhm.
yeah, we'll just have to
Well, the
see.
reality is it's not going away. The reality is it's not going away. So even trying to avoid it, it's not going away. So, I mean, you watch a show on Netflix and it suggests you your next movie. That's like a form of artificial intelligence. That is an algorithm based, like, you know what I mean? Like
Siri,
there's
Alexa, like
right,
everything we're
everything,
using has AI
all of
baked
it.
into it at
So
this point. Even our
not a
phones
thing
now
of like
too. Geez.
right, right. So it's not going away. If anything, it'll be more embedded. You won't notice it. But I think being the person to be curious about it is a really fun place to be. I think that's what we're encouraging people is be curious about it, play with it, know that it's a tool. And like anything, you need to have moderation with all your tools.
Yes, I would very much agree. And I think, and I say this all the time, but it's like keep being interested. You have to keep checking in on things because, like, from one month to the next, there could be very significant changes in what these things are capable of. So just like keep an eye on it, keep your finger on the pulse, whatever
Mhm.
they say, but just make sure you're keeping up because it's not slowing down. That's for damn sure.
Mhm. Oh my goodness. Okay, I could talk to you about this forever, but we should probably wrap up. Where can everyone follow you? You're a great resource. I send your Instagram to so many people for the changes and like different applications and ways to use things. I learned so much from you, but please plug yourself.
So come follow me on Instagram at the Bemused Studio. And then I've got a newsletter, Artificial Insanity, that I send out every Monday or Tuesday, depending what day I send it. Sometimes it comes on Monday, sometimes it comes on Tuesdays. But generally, it's going to be what's new, what I think creative entrepreneurs should know about AI, because there's so much you can't possibly keep up. So I try and curate it to be like, this is the stuff you guys like really want to know about. I've got my Basecamp 2.0 course, which is really teaching you how to work with Chat GPT as kind of a creative collaborator and using it as your brand's kind of right hand. So how to customize it, how to really work with prompting. And then I'm launching Bottomless in January. So I don't know when this will be
Hell
going live, but Bottomless is going to be a 12-week program where you're getting to watch and learn how to build a brand using AI. And it's like each week you're getting a different part of the brand building process. So you'll learn about using ChatGPT, you'll learn about using Midjourney, Visual Electric, all the different tools that I use and the different ways that I use them to come up with like a full brand.
Yay.
So, and maybe we'll have you come in and do a little
Oh,
something,
I would
something
love
in
to
there,
collaborate.
obviously. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm working on right now. Who knows what I'll be doing 3 months from now? I mean, obviously, Bottomless is a 3-month program starting in January, but I do really think that with the way that all this is changing, I never know where I'll be. I never know if I'll be focused on image generation or using ChatGPT or using Claude. So just stick around and ride the wave with
Yeah,
me.
ride it. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to be part of something that feels like it's the beginning because I think by the next time we have you on the podcast, we're going to be talking about totally different things again,
Yes, always.
which is great. Which is great. Great. Awesome. Well, thanks guys for listening. If you love this episode, please feel free. Send it to a friend, leave a comment, leave a review, share it to your stories. We always love to see it. Tag myself, tag the Bemuse Studio. And if you have any questions, send us a DM. Lovely. Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye guys.